Good morning, everybody. Dungeons & Dragons Online does not generally follow the holy trinity of MMO games of tank healers and DPS, because if your DPS is tanky enough, maybe they can tank a bit, and if your tanks can heal, maybe they can just heal everybody, you don't need to bring a healer. Dungeons & Dragons Online is a game that is flexible and gives you a lot of different ways to interpret the same roles you're used to. Now, yes, in the absolute upper echelon of some of the content, you will find the tankiest tanks, the healiest healers, and the DPS, but keep in mind that 99.9% of the gameplay is going to give you a good opportunity to test out and play all-around characters. And Druid is one of those characters that gives you a good chance to play all around. Now, last year, I released a build that I called the Poison Paladin Tank. It was a tank character as a paladin that could cast spells to deal damage and was capable of damaging enemies and clearing things and holding aggro through damage, as well as having some healing on the side. So that way your character was fully capable of doing quests on your own if nobody was around, which is very, very important if you want to be playing the game sometimes, because you can't always find a group. This build was fun and successful, and multifaceted. Tank, heal, and DPS? Where do I sign up? However, it is not without its flaws, and the largest flaw is simply the fact that it did not level from 1 to 20 very well. This character really wants you to take the tank stats, and so you had to go and grab all the tank abilities and level slowly. And I wanted to fix it. And how did I fix it? Bears, and barbarians, and a whole bunch of stuff. And that's why this character exists. Introducing the Poison Tank 2.0, the Bear Druid version. Now, the reason why you want to go Bear Druid for this is because Bear Druid gets to take the natural fighting feats to get extra defensiveness and tankiness. Natural fighting grants you bonus physical resistance rating, which is something that you want as a tank. But on top of that, during the leveling process, it also gives you extra damage with two-handed weapons. And the tree gives you a ton of rage bonuses, which gives you a gigantic amount of strength and really pumps up your damage. As a result, during the leveling process, you can take all the appropriate feats you need to become a full tank, but you can change your enhancement tree to make sure you're taking all of the very offensive components of the tree, grabbing all the rage bonuses, all the damage out of it, and just slamming people extremely hard, doing tons of damage, and then just respeccing into a tank once you hit 20 and doing the standard spellcaster tank thing. This character is also able to continue to use its rages in a very special way by focusing on Shifter, with the Beasthide Shifter granting additional Constitution and Armor class while raging as opposed to a minus to Armor class. This means that you can continue to rage while casting your spells and abilities. Now you might be wondering, how are you supposed to do that and cast spells while raging? Because generally you can't. Now one of the ways you can do it is in Epic Destinies. You can use the Draconic Incarnation to allow you to cast spells while raging. But that means you need one of your trees to be Draconic Incarnation, and you have to spend 7 points. Both things I personally don't want to do. However, Bear Druids get the ability to cast Druid spells while raging. So you can have all the rage necessary to give yourself tons of Constitution. When I say tons, I mean like 16 points. It's crazy. And Armor class, and all sorts of other bonuses, while also still being able to cast spells. However, the Epic Destiny abilities are a little interesting. I didn't know this at the time, but after playing it, I learned, hey, did you know that Primal Avatar spells count as Druid spells? Which means you can use all your Primal Avatar spell-like abilities, Rejuvenation Cocoon, Carrion Swarm, and Shardstorm easily while raging as a druid because they count as druid spells, so your cast druid spells while raging effect from the bear tree works anyway. So what are the pros and cons of this build once you get up into the higher levels? Well, the first pro is it's actually kind of tankier. You don't really have to do that many changes in terms of the gear, but I will go into that later. But you end up having a lot more hit points than you would on the Poison Paladin tank, and on top of that, you're significantly more mobile, gaining access to things like the Bear Charge. You also have more magic resistance rating and have a higher cap on physical resistance rating because of the way that I have it built and the focus of it. The downside is your healing is a lot worse. On the Poison Paladin, your character was capable of easily healing pretty much everybody that you came across, especially since that character got Renewal, which is very, very useful for spot healing and healing over time. However, the Druid can't use that, and as a result, you have to focus on other stuff. Rejuvenation Cocoon and just some of your basic heals are pretty much the only things you're able to heal, so it's a little bit less powerful at healing your allies. However, it's still very self-sufficient, so it's not like you're going to be going down anytime soon. It just isn't going to be something you're going to be bringing if you need it spot heal a raid, as an example. But you do gain access to the ability to raise dead as well, which is convenient on this character. Now, the most important thing is that while there are some differences in epics, I did find that the character was very, very strong, and the leveling is the key thing. The regular Poison Paladin tank, you'd have to level from 1 to 20, either by having somebody carry you, or actually take your character from 1 to 30, and then do an epic reincarnation to reset your feats and your spells. Or, this character can be done straight up. I leveled it myself, by hand, just putting on a two-handed weapon and fighting my way through monsters. And it worked really, really well. So I can't recommend it enough. If you need a tank for your friend group and you want to play something, this character build, I mean, it's not that much of a tank during the leveling process because it just kind of kills people and mauls them. I mean, that's what bears do. Have you seen a grizzly bear? They're huge. They're terrifying. And that's what you do. You just maul people, destroy them, lots of strength, lots of damage. But then the second you hit 20, change up your enhancement sheet, put on your epic destinies, and now you're a spellcaster tank, able to keep your distance or stay in melee as much as you wish, and absolutely dumpster all the monsters that are coming towards your way and protect your allies. This character build was an absolute blast to level thanks to the power of Bear Druid and the Roar ability and just the melees, and then even as you move further and further into the game, this character in epics has so many interesting tools in its toolbox and makes a very fun and versatile tank. Now enough blathering, I'm going to pass it over to me with the build. Mauling in the early game and casting spells in the late game, this tank is sure to lead you directly to success because I tested it out a bunch, it works super good, and I want you to do it too. Now, of course, this is still the base framework of the Fun Tank, which, of course, if you have not seen before, there will be a link in the description to that video if you want to try the Paladin version. But this is the Druid version. 10 Druid, 8 Barbarian, 2 Fighter as a shifter. This isn't the perfect version, this is just the first one that I tried, and I know it works really, really well. If you are free to play and you don't have access to Shifter, you can just play as a human or basically any other race that you want. Shifter is nice because it gives you some defenses, but you could just play Dwarf to get also extra hit points and what have you, and it would probably be almost as good. I just like Shifter because I think it fits really well with the raging mechanic, which your character is always going to be doing as a Bear Druid. Now, Constitution here being your most important stat, you can start with as 7 or 18 con and kind of max that out. Every other stat is not as important. The only stat you care about a little bit is strength, because during the leveling process, your character will get all the raging bonuses to strength, so you will want to make sure you are using strength here just a little bit. So I started with a 12, but don't worry, rage is really crazy during the leveling process, granting you almost like 14 extra strength or something, so you're going to have that coming out there. As I said, pretty tanky, but the tank really comes in when you go into bear form. Boom, popping into bear form, jumping up some more physical resistance rating, more fortitude, more armor class, and once I actually get the buffs going from the rage, boom, once I rage, an extra 30 points of armor class right there, even more physical resistance rating, health over 4,000, just feeling a lot stronger, because this character is designed to use raging, but not just any rage, the shift. Now let's talk about skills. This character, you want to have Intimidate, and then Spellcraft and Heal. Those are your main skills. Everything else doesn't matter. So if you can't take anything else, then don't. You want Intimidate, Heal, and Spellcraft. Intimidate, because you're a tank. Heal, because it increases your healing output, which you want for yourself and for others. And Spellcraft, because Spellcraft gives you extra damage, which your character uses for your spell tanking. Listen, because I didn't know what else to put it into, and I thought it would be funny. And Concentration, I put a couple in here at the beginning for no reason. So, Heal, Intimidate, Spellcraft. Everything else doesn't matter. Now, as far as your feats go, feats are all over the place with this build, so it's going to be hard to describe. I would say more or less follow the guide that I'm going to put below. The only thing I want to point out is that in the guide I'm going to give you, I do take the natural fighting feats 3 times. This is essential for the leveling process, as what you do is instead of using a sword and shield while leveling, you just use a two-handed sword or two-handed whatever weapon, whatever you can get. Like I used a quarterstaff for about half of it, and then I swapped to the Sword of Shadow at level 10. Then that way, in bear form, you get extra damage while wielding a two-handed weapon, and it makes leveling from 1 to 20 very, very fast. And then once you get above 20, if you want to stay in this build, you would swap all 3 of these natural fightings into toughness and just gain a bunch more health and become beefier. As far as the epic feats, the one thing I want to note here is I did take Bulwark of Defense, because later on you will get an effect called Divine Bulwark that says if you have the Bulwark of Defense feat, you get an additional 10 physical resistance rating. And what this does is it says in offensive stance, you gain +2 saving throws and armor class. I want to point out that the bear defensive stance that you get, called the Nature's Protector stance or Nature's Defense, is not a defensive stance. That is not what this means. Bulwark of Defense only applies to defensive fighting, the feat you get for free, not epic defensive fighting, defensive fighting, and combat expertise. It should say that. It doesn't. I'll see if I can, I'll bug report this or maybe put a suggestion that should get changed. But just so you know, this doesn't really do anything for the character and is interchangeable with epic damage reduction, which is what I originally had before I tested it to figure this one out. As far as your druid spells go, during the leveling process, you want to make sure you're taking Maul and Shred, giving you some extra damage, maybe Shillelagh or some Magic Fang for some extra stats. It's important to note that in epics as well, the character that I'm currently playing, you can still take Magic Fang. This gives you an extra +4 armor class on your shield, which is kind of weird, which I forgot to use. Whoopsie, I should have been using that the whole time. But if I cast Magic Fang, it actually buffs up your shield, or at least it's supposed to. Is it not going to do it because it's metal? No, it does. It just hasn't changed on here. But it actually adds to the defense bonus of your shield, which does end up giving you more armor class, which is kind of weird. Outside of that, grab heals, grab other things you need, and then later levels, you want to make sure you have Reincarnation, as well as Death Ward, and then, of course, Freedom, Movement, and Jump as spells you can cast on yourself. Now let's talk about enhancements. Why Shifter? Why did I choose Shifter? Well, there's a couple of reasons here. First is that Shifter grants a bonus to Constitution while raging, which you are doing because bears gain bonuses while raging that are progressive and very strong. Additionally, because I have Barbarian levels, I also get more Constitution while raging. So this is 3 Con while raging. That's 3 Con while raging. That's 6 Constitution on top of the 4 that I already get, which is fantastic. I also forgot to talk about shifting in general. As a Shifter, I actually don't need to rage. During the leveling process, you're going to be using Barbarian Rage, but once you get into Epics, because my character is playing as a Beast-Hide Shifter, I have a Shift or a Rage that instead of draining my armor class, I gain armor class from Raging, which is really cool. Not necessary, but it does make you a little bit tankier, just on that small end. However, on top of that, you also get bonus physical resistance while Raging, healing amplification while raging, and quality bonus to maximum hit points and physical resistance rating. Again, if you didn't want to take this route, you could just go like Dwarf or something and just take the con, the health, and the quality hit points right here. But again, this is kind of how I did it. It also gets you extra spell threat. Out of the bear tree, you barely need anything in here. Except for the stance bonuses. So you want all the stance bonus stuff because it's all really good defensive. And then I took the entire row of tier 5s because everything is very good. Now, bear charge, you don't actually use this as a charge as a knockdown. This is just for moving around. This is amazing when you get slowed down by Doom Reapers or you're just slowed in general. It's red alert. You can't get to somewhere. Bear charges is fantastic for moving around. You can also use this underwater for going fast. And Lightning Strikes the Mountain is a defensive bonus. It gives you 40 magical resistance rating if you're in Nature's Protector. So you just want to press this whenever you need extra magic resistance rating because it's very, very good at keeping you protected from magic. So when you encounter some flame skulls or whatever it happens to be, hit that down and you're going to be a lot more defensive. Now, Occult Slayer here is great because it grants you extra Barbarian percentage damage reduction. If you don't know, Barbarians take a percentage less damage. It used to be like actual flat damage reduction, but they changed it about 2 years ago to be percentage based. So now you actually take 1% or 2% less damage. This character gets a total of 5% less damage taken, which is essential because your character doesn't get as much physical or magical resistance rating as a real full-on tank being a druid. They just don't have as much of those actual defensive, like physical magical resistance rating buffs, which is why this is very good. Additionally, I also pick up anti-magic boost here along the way because this gives you bonus saving throws versus magic and magical resistance rating, which in my opinion is better than Beast at Bay. Even though Beast at Bay is not bad, I still think the extra 30 magic resistance rating is going to be better. Then of course we grab this at a Ravager, and then out of here in Stalwart Defender, I pick up the defensive mastery here for the maximum dex bonus and armor class, and then the maximum dex bonus while using a shield because you're using tower shields on this build. And this character, Tower Shields, you only get a max dex bonus of 4, so this gives you 3 extra dodge. And going from 4 to 7% dodge is massive. That is a huge amount of extra damage you're going to be mitigating, considering you already have a huge amount of armor class, you've got Incorporeality, you've got Blurry, so that's what you want to do here. As far as your epic destinies, I use Primal Avatar, Unyielding Sentinel, and Legendary Dreadnought. This is basically the same setup that you would want to use for the Fun Tank build, but kind of breaking it down. The main difference you're going to see here is that I don't use Renewal because you can't cast it. So out of Druid and Bear, you get Beast Awaken. You can cast Druidic Magic while raging, which is awesome because it means you can cast all of these spells in Primal Avatar because they have the little rider here that says, considered a Druid spell for interactions at the bottom. Considered a Druid spell. Considered a Druid spell. That's awesome, so you can cast them while raging. It means you can't cast Renewal, which kind of sucks. Now, Renewal is extremely good. So your ability to heal others is kind of limited in that regard. But as a druid, you can just cast druid healing spells, Vigor, Cure Serious Wounds, that stuff is very strong. So you don't have to worry about a renewal as much. Granted, if you wanted, you could actually take the point that I spent here on Spirit Body Boon or Spirit Boon Body and the points out of Dreadnought, lose quite a few hit points, but then you could take Casting While Raging out of the Dragon or Draconic Incarnation tree instead, which would then allow you to cast Renewal. So you could just swap out some points here, maybe just like lose a little bit of your shield armor class or take a point out of, I don't know, something else and grab Renewal here. And then your character would be able to cast Renewal in combat, which is also a good option. At the end of the day, it can be flexible like that, so I would leave it up to you whether you think that would be important or not. For me, I did a bunch of R7s and 8s, and it didn't seem like it was that necessary because I could still heal in combat, and the self-healing wasn't as necessary as like the Paladin, because as I said, I can cast heal spells in combat, and the power is like pretty good. As far as itemization goes, I literally just ripped all the items from my Paladin build, so this is exactly the same gear that you can find there. So 7-piece Winter set, because the 7-piece Winter just gives all the stats you want: threat, constitution, armor class, just good stuff, and a lot of the good items here. We got the Bulwark of Snow here as well for the shield, because it grants force absorption, which is just really, really good, and it's also a tower shield, so it just fits out of winter. The weapon is the Malleable Scepter of Devotion, because it gives you all the devotion spell power that you want for all your heals. For your spell power on your spell casts, you grab the Ring of Falls Decay, and to make sure that you get a little bit more spell power, you grab the Dustbone Ring, because Dustbone grants Profane Life Force as well, gives you a little bit of extra health, and it gets you the 2-piece set for the Autumn set, which is pretty nice. And then lastly, probably the hardest item to get in this build is the Realistic Necklace of Intimidation. There's no way to fit these stats into anywhere. You could get Insightful Charisma on something, but getting Insightful Intimidate and spell saves into this build is quite difficult on the same necklace. So I went with Caneth Crafting, which is very, very good. If you don't have this, you can probably just go with the not the Family Recruit Sigil, but the Standard Issue Sigil, which gives you most of these stats, and then get just a ditch Insightful Intimidate, or you'd have to swap out something else for like a command item. Maybe you'd want to use the Winter Ring, the Nocturne Ring that gives the command that gives you the Insightful Intimidate on it instead of the Dustbone, which is obviously an option. It gives you more fortification as well. So there's definitely some like back and forth as to how you want to build out this character. But at the end of the day, entirely up to you. This item set is very easy to build and get, except for this item. Some people might be worried about this ring or this trinket, the Icon of the Bitterwind, but this this item comes from the Dryad and the Demigod raid, which is the easiest raid to run in the game. Everybody runs it all the time on basically every server. People pug this raid all the time. It's very, very easy, and the gear that it drops is fantastic. So also, this item is not wanted by most people because this is a tank-only item. And very few people play tanks. So if you do it, your tanks probably already have it and that are doing the raid, and they'll just give it to you if it drops. Or you can just run it and eventually get enough runes. So very easy item to get. Don't be worried about this one at all. Just join some pug, Dryad the Demigods, enjoy the music, and get yourself an Icon of the Bitterwind, because this item is phenomenal for this build, and I wouldn't replace it. Anyways, that's pretty much all I have in terms of how to build this character. That's basically how it goes. This character is, as I said before, a improvement in that it's a little bit tankier, in my opinion. It just doesn't have that quick like snap healing like the Paladin has with the AoE burst Lay on Hands, which is very, very cool. This character does not have that, but as I said, it's a little bit tankier. It levels way easier, and you can actually solo level with this build versus the tank Paladin, where you had to literally level to 30 as a different build and then do an epic reincarnation. So overall, I think this character is definitely an improvement, although not the best. And so hopefully, if you're out there trying to look for something, looking for a tank build, this will be well suited for you. But that's all I've got for you today. So thank you for watching. If you like this content, hit that follow button and subscribe to that comment section, because I'm going to be back again with another build for you very, very soon. Enjoy the rest of your evening and eat some vegetables, because if you don't, you're going to get scurvy. Bye-bye. Have a nice day. See you later. Goodbye.